So these 4 bullets represent the key best practices for row or aisle level airflow management. We'll get into much greater detail on each of these on some of the subsequent slides, but I wanted to do a quick overview right now. So the first thing is blocking off open spaces under the racks. So cabinets are often delivered with casters and levelers to aid with initial deployment. So if your cabinets have casters and levelers, then by default, you'll end up with a gap between the floor and the bottom of the rack, and blocking this gap is what we're referring to here. The second is sealing open spaces in the cabinet rows. So depending on site conditions, some layouts will end up with gaps between the racks due to support structures, other types of barriers in the room, or intentional space that's been left there for a future roll-in rack. Installing aisle end doors. So this prevents the wraparound mixing that will occur at the aisle ends if doors are not used. So doors are very important, and they're available in many designs from a variety of manufacturers, and we'll get into greater detail about doors on some of the subsequent slides. And lastly, the top of rack containment. So hot aisle containment typically features an above rack barrier around the perimeter of the hot aisle and typically extends upwards from the racks to the top of the ceiling, or vice versa from the ceiling down to the top of the racks. And cold aisle containment could involve a roof or a capped aisle or even a partially capped aisle that spans across the cold aisle. And again, more to come on both of these as we get into the presentation. So this is the unique scenario, right? So sealing spaces at the ends of the cabinet rows. We're not quite yet talking about doors. So this scenario is more commonly found in retrofit applications where containment perhaps was an afterthought, right? So because most vendors' door designs require that the aisle end cabinets be in alignment or on the same plane for the doors to attach and install properly, even the slightest offset can make the installation a little bit more tricky and will require some means of dealing with and sealing the space. So depending on how subtle, like a few inches, or dramatic, like maybe a whole tile or more, that this offset might be, there are a number of ways to accommodate the scenario. So if structural rigidity of the door needs to be considered, then added bracing may need to be added in addition to just sealing the gap. So what you got going on here in these pictures, kind of in the bottom left in the little inset. So this is another co-location environment. It's a wide aisle, right? You've got a cabinet on the left, you've got a 48-inch wide dual swing doors at the 48-inch width, and then you've got probably another 1 to 2 feet of open aisle, and then this thing returns back. You can't see the building column, but it's another one of those big white columns you saw in the previous slide. So we designed a steel enclosure to span the rest of the aisle and return back to the column, and then inside in the insert where you got the 90-degree angle, there's a brace in there so that when these doors close, it doesn't wobble or shake, or just adds into the structural integrity. In the middle there, the larger picture in the middle, so Upsite's got a unique way of addressing this situation as well. So this is called an adjustable mounting post. So this is a rigid metal post that's got a big steel plate that you can mount to the floor, and you can position this post to align the cabinet on the other side of the aisle, or whatever piece of equipment might be. So now you've just created that common plane or alignment that you need to properly attach the doors and make them work. On the right, the last thing is, again, this particular client again wanted a rigid panel that you could kind of see through to do the same kind of thing. You can kind of see the doors, and then we return back to cover up what looks like, maybe 27, 28-inch offset there. So there's a variety of ways of accommodating this situation, and just be aware that it can be dealt with, but it's something you need to pay consideration to.